I'm going to call tonight's meeting to order. All rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. It's nice to see so many people in the audience, too. Roll call, please.
Sorry. Councilmember Murray?
Present.
Councilmember Ryan?
Here.
Councilmember Page?
Here.
Mayor Matsumoto Wright?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall?
Here.
Councilmember Woodard?
Present.
And Councilmember Sonmore asked to be excused.
Move to excuse Councilmember Sonmore.
Second.
It's been moved to excuse Councilmember Sonmore. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? She is excused. All right, now, do we have any late changes to the agenda?
No late changes, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is public comments. Do we have any public comments, online or in person?
It's on.
Oh, you have to read that first, sorry.
The specific comment is for agenda item 7, so do we want to wait for that or do the public comment now? There's no other general public comments.
Are we doing anything that is not on the agenda right now? Mayor Pro Tem Wall, did you have something?
If it was for item 7, not 6. It's item 6, we have a public hearing. Item 7 is just a presentation. And so if this is on 7, I guess.
There's no public comments on number 7 when we're there, so if they want to say something, they can say something now.
Now may be a good.
George? Okay, so hold on one second. I'm going to have to read this. No. Public comment, testimony, and guidelines. The city welcomes general public comments at the beginning of council work sessions and meetings and comments on particular agenda items at the time it is being discussed. Public comments are for the official record. Council does not respond to comments or questions during this time. Address the council as a whole, and comments shall pertain to topics, not individual council members, staff, or audience members. Clearly state your name and your city of residence and limit your comments to no more than 5 minutes. The clerk will terminate comments beyond the allotted time or if there is a violation of the comment behavior guidelines. Written comments received will be added to the official record but will not be read aloud. George, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is George Stanton. I'm from Mountlake, Terrace, and I know we're just going to be learning about this tonight, and I'm incredibly excited for the presentation that is going to occur on agenda item 7, presentation on the Food Forest Ballinger and Ballinger Organic Gardens. I just wanted to get out ahead and voice my very, very strong support for this. I think this is exactly the kind of idea that helps a community like ours. It helps build community. It gives people a stake and investment in our community. We've been talking a lot about how to get people involved, how to spur volunteerism, and I think that this is a wonderful way that we can do that. We can visibly do that down in the park, and we can get a lot of people from our community involved and create those opportunities. So I know we're going to hear a lot more about it. I just wanted to say I think it's fantastic. I think we should do it. Thank you.
No more public comments.
All right, thank you. We're on to consent agenda. Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to approve the consent agenda, items A through F.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? It's been moved. Consent agenda is now approved. Next is our recognition for Eagle Scouts with our Recreation and Parks Director, Jeff Betts. Oh, not Jeff? We haven't had an Eagle Scout presentation in quite a while.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Selena Williams. I'm the park supervisor for the city of Mountlake Terrace. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, Council, and audience tonight. I am here with George Stanton. He serves on our Recreation and Park Advisory Committee. Him and I are here tonight to show some appreciation for a couple Eagle Scouts. If Christian Johnson and Owen Ritter will please approach the podium. Thanks, guys. So a little background on Eagle Scouts. I've been learning a lot about them. To earn the Eagle Scout status, these young individuals have to earn a minimum requirement of 21 merit badges. They have to serve in a troop leadership position for at least 6 months and plan, lead, and complete a service project, which is what we are recognizing with Christian and Owen tonight. And I'm realizing I need to pull up the slideshow. Thanks, Jeff. One moment. Okay, so these two projects, Jeff, if you go next slide, took place at Terrace Creek Park and Terrace Creek Overlook. Next slide, please. We'll start with Christian. Christian approached the Recreation and Parks Department with an interest in completing an Eagle Scout project in April. After meeting with staff at Terrace Creek Overlook, Christian opted to remove invasive species and plant native plants along the trail. The city purchased 20 native plants and provided a debris bin and wood chips. Christian organized volunteers to perform the weeding, planting, and mulching. Christian provided compost to better support the new plants, and him and his team were able to complete the project this July. The city of Mountlake Terrace would like to thank Christian with her certificate of appreciation, which I will read. Christian Johnson. On behalf of the city of Mountlake Terrace, in recognition of completing an Eagle Scout project at Terrace Creek Overlook, removing invasives and restoring with native plants, we appreciate your hard work and your dedication to public recreation facilities. Thank you.
We were also fortunate that Owen reached out to the city in May with an interest in performing trail improvements. We adjust the spot for these efforts at Terrace Creek Park along the trail leading from the park to the Recreation Pavilion. Owen did it all. He fundraised and was able to cover costs of nearly all the supplies, leaving just the city to just provide crushed rock. Over a weekend in November, Owen and his team were able to install steps and improve drainage along this portion of the trail. And I would like to present him with a certificate as well, which I will read, which states, on behalf of the city of Mountlake Terrace, in recognition of completing an Eagle Scout project at Terrace Creek Park, performing trail improvements and installing steps, we appreciate your hard work and dedication to the public recreation and facilities.
I would just like to say that these projects will continue to have a positive impact on our community, and we are grateful you both chose to complete these projects with Mountlake Terrace. I enjoyed working with you both and want to personally congratulate you on earning your Eagle Scout badge. I am sure the council would like to take an opportunity to thank you directly and perhaps get some photos. So, thank you. Family is also welcome to come up for photos.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Very nice work. Congratulations. Yeah, I was gonna say I know as a parent, but yes, I was gonna say it's a team effort, I'm sure. So yes, I was gonna say, we'll squeeze you in there.
You can be.
Move here.
You stand right in between the two of
Yeah,
them. I think
you're
Coco,
shorter.
Yeah,
And we got two here.
right in between the scouts. There you go.
You're good right there. You're good.
No.
You're good.
I'm
I can
no.
pretend I'm taller.
Okay.
It was 20 years ago when my son got his Eagle Scout in Mountlake Terrace, too. 20 years, wow. All right. Thank you. And so next, we're going to go on to the public hearing, review, public hearing, and vote on the ordinance for adopting the Housing Action Plan with Christy Osborne. Here you are.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Christy Osborne, Community Development Director. I'm with Mackenzie Visser from Echo Northwest and Myrna Ali from Community and Economic Development. She is one of our associate planners in our department. So we will be presenting what you heard, I believe, in November, the draft housing action plan, and hope we get your support this evening and be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you all. Just give me 1 second to pull up my slides. I found it. Thank you, though.
There they are.
There it is. All right. And then we'll just put this in full screen mode. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. Tonight, I'll be going over the work that we did for the Housing Action Plan and summarizing some of the findings, and then we'll have question and discussion. So tonight, I will cover the plan updates that have happened since I last talked with you all on November 13th. I will do a brief overview of the Housing Action Plan itself, including the different sections that are in it, briefly summarize the Housing Action Plan actions, and then open it up for questions and discussion. So since I spoke with you all on November 13th, we have added an action 5.13 that is in response to the Planning Commission feedback when they adopted the plan or motion to recommend adoption of the plan, that we add an action about maintaining ongoing engagement with the development community and using those relationships to coordinate introductions and inform policy development as you implement this plan. We also added mitigating junk fees as a tenant protection strategy to Action 3.3 in response to some feedback from Mayor Pro Tem Wall. We added regional coordination as a strategy for advocating for funding opportunities, specifically in South Snohomish County, to Action 5.2, also in response to feedback by Mayor Pro Tem Wall. And finally, we added inviting community land trusts to provide information about their model as an implementation opportunity in response to some questions and feedback that we got about the community land trust model specifically. So just to go over what is in this plan, which is intended to be a roadmap for implementing the housing element of the comprehensive plan, there is a section giving some context for this document, a section outlining housing needs and opportunities that we found when doing the analyses that can be found in more detail in the appendix, and that is community engagement with the development community. We did a community open house here to gather feedback from the general public. We also did a feasibility analysis looking at the impact of potential MFTE programs. And then finally, there are the Housing Action Plan actions, which are both summarized in a large table and also each have their own sheet with additional details. So as I mentioned, this document is intended to be a roadmap for implementing the housing element. The different aspects that this plan includes are identifying steps that the city can take specifically around housing options and affordability, things that were identified as important to this community. It also builds on recent zoning updates and ongoing work to ensure consistency for policy direction and implementation, identifies programs, partnerships, and policies that support the city's housing goals, including housing stability, anti-displacement, and housing choice. And lastly, it helps the city make decisions about what to implement first by organizing the actions into different timeframes for implementation. Several inputs, including the community engagement that I mentioned, as well as the feasibility analysis, as well as reviewing all of the significant amount of work that you all did as part of the comprehensive plan adoption process and other work that the city has done in recent years. We compiled all of that information, and across those sources, we identified 5 housing policy priorities, which are support housing production overall, investing in centers and mixed-use areas, including neighborhood mixed-use zones and the town center, incentivizing affordable units, both naturally occurring as well as regulated, increasing housing diversity with an emphasis on middle housing, and preventing displacement. So in the Housing Action Plan, this is an example of one of the actions. Each action has its own action sheet that has additional details, including implementation timeframe, the staff capacity that would be needed for implementation, a rationale behind why the action is in this plan, supporting housing element policies to tie those two documents together, the current policy or process that the city is engaging in, and then implementation considerations and next steps. And for the near-term actions, we have a more fleshed out implementation plan for including all of the steps that would be need to be taken to implement that action. And then for the longer term, we identified the immediate next step that the city can take so that it can begin to make progress on all of these actions, even though some of them will take longer to implement than others. This is a table summarizing all of the actions, and as you can see, they're organized by time frame for implementation. So we have completed actions, in-progress actions that the city is currently doing, near-term actions, which we identified as in the next 1 to 2 years, midterm actions, which we identified as the next 3 to 5 years or so, and then long-term actions, which are things that would go beyond that, as well as ongoing actions, which aren't necessarily things that the city would do where it's complete at any given point, but rather ongoing partnerships and support for various programs that the city will continue to do throughout the implementation process. So I will just summarize the actions that are in each category. So things that the city has already done, as I mentioned, the comprehensive plan update, which was, a big effort, and as one of the things that that comprehensive plan update did was it updated the land use regulations to provide increased residential capacity, including identifying opportunities for middle housing. Also earlier this year, we updated the zoning and design standards in the new residential zones And a big part of that effort was also promoting middle housing in alignment with House Bill 1110 at the state level. And part of that code update, we also offered density bonuses for environmentally sustainable building. The city is currently working on updating its permitting forms and practices around specifically the updated housing types that came out of the zoning update. The city is also working on simplifying its ADU permitting requirements to make the process faster and more accessible, updating impact fee assessments to per square foot calculation, again, to promote middle housing and smaller unit development. City is also updating its development regulations for zones in the gateway and neighborhood mixed-use areas to align with the comprehensive plan. And finally, pulling together educational materials about all different aspects of the development process, including the updated permitting practices, building considerations, financing, to really help give residents and developers who maybe have a little bit less experience or haven't worked in Mountlake Terrace before clear guidance on how to navigate the city's requirement and make the development process more accessible. Actions that we identified for the near term are reviewing and updating the sub-area plans for the comprehensive, to reflect the comprehensive plan, as well as reviewing town center zoning and design standards. Also making a number of code changes, including updating mobile home park standards, clarifying regulations and definitions for small and alternative housing types, adopting building code amendments to reduce barriers to home repair and rehabilitation, as well as support more effective building practices, including some upcoming updates in 2026 from the state building code. Also addressing the permit review process, both for middle housing as well as income restricted, affordable housing units to help expedite unit production, and also considering offering a property tax exemptions for ADUs that are rented to low-income households, both as a tool to help incentivize homeowners to add ADUs and be a financial incentive to do that, but also to rent them to lower-income households and create affordable units in your community. In the midterm, there are some considerations around waiving or reducing impact fees specifically for affordable housing, as well as adopting density bonuses for affordable housing in certain neighborhoods to encourage development. Also expanding tenant protection strategies and providing information and resources to support lower income renters and be an anti-displacement tool. And then there are a number of MFTE analyses that we did that resulted in these options that we've laid out for your consideration in the future. And those include adopting a 12-year MFTE program in R2, both an 8-year and 12-year MFTE program in R3, and then also thinking about expanding the 12-year MFTE program to the gateway and neighborhood mixed-use zones, and considering what the priorities of that program are and weighing whether or not to continue offering the 8-year program. In the long term, the city could consider encouraging any affordable homeownership units to be stewarded by a community land trust. City could also review its real estate holdings and consider transferring property or leasing it to a mission-driven developer for affordable housing. Also strategically targeting public investments, which can be like infrastructure improvements, but also like parks and sidewalks, things that make development more feasible, as well as attract residents to lease up those units and like continue to attract development in the future. And along the same lines, pursuing funding for infrastructure improvements that could increase feasibility for mission-driven organizations to acquire and preserve at-risk, naturally occurring affordable housing in the community. And then finally, the ongoing actions that we've identified are to continue participating in regional housing efforts. As part of that, proactively engaging the county to clarify its plans for distributing affordable housing funding. Also a number of opportunities for encouraging affordable housing over time, which is supporting applications for public housing funds, encouraging development on religious organizations, which have some eligibility for density bonuses, establishing relationships, again, with community land trusts that can support alternative homeownership models to provide more affordable homeownership options. The city can also provide technical assistance to residents and developers by continuing to provide assistance navigating the permitting process, but also hosting educational community workshops, which is something that the city already does, but focusing those workshops on the development process and different aspects to help people feel more comfortable engaging. Finally, supporting opportunities to purchase manufactured home communities, which can be at risk of displacement, especially in places where there is a lot of development happening, and encouraging maintenance and enforcing maintenance of investment properties, specifically in town center, to help disincentivize vacant or deteriorating buildings in that area. Then finally, we have monitoring, just continuing to look at the trends that are happening and update regulations as needed, as well as keeping a database of regulated and naturally occurring affordable housing so that the city can be proactive about preserving those units. And then the action 5.13 that we have added since the last time we spoke is to maintain ongoing engagement with the development community and to use those relationships to coordinate introductions amongst developers, help make connections between potential partners, and help inform policy development as the city considers how to implement these practices. With that, thank you so much, and I would love to hear any feedback or questions that you all have.
Councilmember Ryan?
Mayor, I just wanted to make a point of privilege that the Boy Scouts that are here, they don't need to continue to attend because we're really going to be talking about things they don't really care about right now, I don't think. And speaking as a past Scoutmaster for 4 years, unless they're working, and we've got 2 people already got their Eagle Scout, so I don't think they're working on their citizenship merit badge. But if you are, stay here. But I just want to make sure that you don't feel like you have to stay here and listen to everything, because it might not be what you want to hear, or what. Maybe you got to do your homework tonight. Anyway, so I just wanted to make sure that you can go if you'd like. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
But you're welcome to stay.
Yes, you are, yeah. Because you do get a merit badge for coming to a city council meeting.
Yeah, citizenship.
Citizenship. All right. Anyone else with a question for the Housing Action Plan? Councilmember Page.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you all for bringing us up to snuff on the things that you brought to us before. Really appreciate that. And again, I'll say it, I think I said it sometime during the summertime, you know, the way that you all have presented this, you know, have helped me understand, you know, something that I didn't understand the first time I heard you listening, bringing it to us, but you've done a very, very good job. I do have, you know, a question about the in-progress actions, the near-term actions, and the midterm actions. Do you all have a time frame on, you know, for dates for these different things that you want to see done? And I'll ask all my questions at the same time. And have you also talked about or have an idea what that time frame, how that time frame is going to impact the growth, you know, or interest here in the city? And last question that goes with all of that is what's the plan to inform the public within Mountlake Terrace and outside the community to let them know that all these things have been completed?
All right, I'll try to answer that. So you folks will be seeing very shortly after the first of the year a proposed work plan that the Planning Commission will be putting together for you. And that's going to outline the things that they would like to accomplish this next year and some of the things that we identified here on this list. So continuing with some of those zoning changes and different things, and then you guys will have the opportunity to review the work plan for the Planning Commission. So you'll see some of those same things. And we will have that calendared out for this next given year. So for 2026 of how we propose to take those things through the Planning Commission and ultimately end up in front of you guys for approval. A lot of them will come before you guys. So that will be the time frame for 26 for the near term. I'm working on it right now, and in looking at it, the Planning Commission will have another very full year, as will you folks, of things that the Planning Commission wants to accomplish, not only for housing and zoning, but the Planning Commission has been very vocal, and maybe since Councilmember Wall and Mayor Matsumoto Wright have been on, of doing sub-area planning, and we've been kind of kicking that can down the road, so to speak, because of state legislation and requirements. But they are very eager to get some sub-area planning done. So you'll be seeing that as well. So that will be, you know, near term of kind of some of those actions. And then, of course, you guys will have input on what you feel is important as a council and vetting those actions to bring forth other work that we'll be seeing as well. So that's kind of how we do it. We work with the Planning Commission, and then they will bring that forth to you as far as their work plan goes.
Thank you.
Councilmember Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask some specifics. And on 3.3, expand tenant protection strategies, support lower income renters to reduce displacement risk and housing instability. How will that take place?
So one of the things that we're required to do under the Growth Management Act, not only to provide for housing and population projections, but we're also required to address displacement in some of our existing housing stock. So some of our older multifamily in other accommodations where we might tear down something and it has a negative impact, could have a negative impact, or our mobile home parks in particular is something that where we are providing for affordable housing. So there's different things that we could do as far as displacement remedies. There's nothing that's proposed right now, but that would be something that we again would work through with the Planning Commission and bring forth to council members as far as some of the actions that council could potentially take to modify displacement of current residents in those situations where we may have naturally affordable housing right now, and we may have the displacement of a number of tenants potentially. So we don't have anything on the books right now, but there's different communities that use different protections and strategies to try to accommodate those folks if they're displaced by newer development, which sometimes happens.
Go ahead.
Okay, on 3.3 then, you mentioned mobile homes. Isn't Mountlake Terrace, aren't we protected in that we have protected zoning for our mobile homes correctly right now?
We do. One of the things that we are seeing that I would like to address, or we would like to propose to address as a department, is that if you have to replace a current mobile home in one of those parks, it can be very, very difficult due to the current regulations that we have in those parks. And so we want to take a fresh look at that and see maybe if we can minimize some of those setback standards or some of those requirements. So when some of that housing stock is beyond its useful life, that somebody could then replace one of those units in existing space in those mobile home parks, which is somewhat difficult to do right now. So just taking a fresh look at some of those regulations in that mobile home zoning is what we would like to do.
Thank you. I still have more on this. I do see on 2.3, we do have a mobile house park standard we're going to be speaking to. But going back to what you're speaking of mobile homes, I don't see a concern if we have protected zoning for mobile homes.
Yeah.
That, just a minute, I'm thinking as I'm speaking. Why there'd be a problem with removing a mobile home and putting another mobile home in a mobile home park when it's like, I don't know what, 6 by 12, 7 by 12, double wide. Why is there a restriction on that in our city?
Well, it has to do primarily with fire code and just making sure that there's minimum setback requirements, almost like a house in zoning, that you have minimum setbacks from structures to make sure that they're safe. And right now, the way that when the mobile home parks were approved, we had a lot more type of units that were single wide mobile homes. They were built a little different than they are now. So sometimes in the current spaces that we have in mobile home parks, it's a little bit more difficult to put a newer type mobile home versus the old one that gets taken out of there. We want to try to change the zoning so we can accommodate the newer types of mobile homes to be placed in some of those locations and still try to make them safe, meeting minimum fire code standards and that type of thing. So we're trying to make it work the long term versus kind of how we originally anticipated, which was a little bit different in how mobile manufactured housing was crafted, a little bit different back when those regulations came into being. So it's protected, it's just the nuances of those zones that we want to take a look at.
If I might be going too far on getting to 2.3 mobile home, but let's say you had a regular mobile home that was 1968 or that, and you want to replace it with the same size. Is there a problem there? Do you have to rezone it, or
no,
what's going on?
That wouldn't be a problem. It's just sometimes that getting that same size is becoming a little bit more difficult than it was. And so that's what we want to try to address.
The same size is more difficult?
No.
What?
No, the same size would be perfectly fine. You could just replace like for like.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's just a little difficult to replace the same size. So there might be some nuances in how they're constructed that might be a little different. We don't want it to be a prohibition about somebody putting something in new.
Good. So our city is going to work with them so this could work out easily for them.
Correct. That's the intent.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make sure I understood the action type, partnership goal, and staff capacity, the staff capacity piece in particular. And with that in mind, I wanted to say I really appreciate the section 5, if you will, every one of those, the ongoing actions. So thank you for those. I think those are very well thought out. But where I got a little confused is that the idea of the staff's capacity. Most of them read as low, and maybe one or two read at medium. And so I just realized I wasn't sure what that means. And I'll just say, let me look at it from, say, one that is maybe possible, 5.3, support public funding applications for affordable housing projects that align with city priorities. And I'll just jump down to the additional context of why I'm asking about the staff capacity. It says mission-driven developers, for those who can't see the document. Mission-driven developers shared, so that sounds like you were talking to folks, so this is feedback directly from them. Mission-driven developers shared that demonstrating city support can be a significant asset for funding applications. And so that's where I say, okay, we could look back at the current policy, immediate next steps, but if staff capacity is low, does that mean we're not getting to it, or what? That's what I'm asking. What does that one mean? Because that seems like that's something we'd want to know and then figure out how to prioritize. It means ongoing, implying it is happening, but can we speed it up, if you will? So I'm just trying to understand, what does that mean, staff capacity low?
I think that's just the realization that with the staff, the size that it is that we do have to make some choices for prioritizing certain actions. We would like to do everything. I always say, but we also have our day job of, processing permits and doing these other things that are required. So it's basically saying, hey, we might not have a robust staff that can do all these things. So we do have to be cognizant that we're going to have to work with council and planning commission to prioritize some of these things that we're trying to accomplish.
And also to clarify the staff capacity analysis that we did, and we worked with staff to identify how much capacity it would take. So it's an assessment of the amount of capacity that it would take staff to implement, not necessarily a reflection of their current capacity. So for example, the action that you were talking about, the mission-driven developers, it's not something that's happening every day. It's maybe every once in a while someone comes to you and they're saying that we want to pursue this funding, and then it's a little bit of work to prepare a letter. Maybe there's some negotiations, things like that, but it's not so much capacity like providing, for example, like ongoing assistance at the permit counter. Like that's something that does require a lot of staff capacity that could limit someone's ability to implement other things.
Wonderful. Thank you both.
Okay, I don't see anyone else's hands going up. So, Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to open the public hearing.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to open the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Public hearing is now open. Do we have anyone signed up?
No one signed up to provide public testimony.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So public hearing is now closed. Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Move to adopt the Housing Action Plan.
Second.
Discussion.
Are there any discussions before we vote? Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all. Appreciate it. We've seen this a lot of times, so I didn't have any additional questions tonight, but did want to take a moment to just say thank you to all of the people involved in this. I've been really excited about us putting together a housing action plan for a couple of years and appreciate all of the work that it took to get here, and excited to have a plan, and I think really appreciative of how the plan was laid out. I think I mentioned this last time you were here, but the fact that we have, kind of current state, short-term, medium-term, long-term goals that move us towards a more holistic plan around housing, which I think as a council member is one of the areas that I hear the most about, right, is the affordability crisis that we are navigating and the real impact that it has on folks in our community. It feels good to have a plan and a foundation to work from. And so just want to say thank you. I'm excited to work on this. I'm excited to figure out ways to both prioritize the most impactful pieces as well as try to get more of those things moving more quickly. But just really excited to be at this point and wanted to say thank you to everybody involved, the planning commissioners, all of you, staff, and the community who showed up and gave input. I think, we have a really great plan and just appreciate where we are. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor. A little ahead of ourselves as well, since we haven't voted, but nonetheless, in anticipation of that vote, I do want to say as well, thank you so much. I have actually heard from developers who have said they've been waiting for us to do this. And so if I can just pause and say the timing of us to be on the kind of cusp of making this vote is amazing. To think that, we're within reach of starting phase 2 of Town Center here, right, or Main Street, I should say. So it's just the timing of it is great, and to know that folks can look at this and decide, well, where do they fall into the bigger scheme of Mountlake Terrace's vision is outstanding. So just thank you for helping us work through that process.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I really want to echo the comments of my fellow council members, but want to say that, as we all know, we have a housing crisis, and we all need throughout the region to address this crisis on a number of different levels, whether it's supply, choices, affordability, displacement, just a number of different things that we need to address as a region. And I'm proud to say that Mountlake Terrace is one of the few cities that's really stepping up to the plate and making a difference. And that is in large part thanks to our community, the support we've received from our community, our council and our staff for the leadership we've provided, and for the work that you guys have done in helping put all of our combined interest in addressing this challenge into a solid, cohesive plan of action for us to take steps. Between our comprehensive plan that we adopted last year, the steps we took earlier in adopting some of the housing measures earlier this year, and now this housing action plan, it gives us clear direction for addressing the crisis that's at hand and doing our part to make sure that we're providing a variety of housing choices and affordability and protections that are needed for our community and our residents. So appreciate all the work that's been done by all of you and the engagement that we had with our community and the feedback that we got from our community in making this happen. I'm excited to be providing a yes vote on this as we move into voting. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? So you covered a lot in that short a time. I saw that we went from housing affordability to diversity to everything. So thank you so much. That was a lot of work. And I know Mayor Pro Tem has been wanting this to be done for I don't know how many years now. And we're finally here to the vote. All right, Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
We have a motion on the table. I'll call for the question.
Call for the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It has passed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so next. Thank you. Next is where the other half of the audience is here for, and that will be the presentation of the food forest at Ballinger and Ballinger Organic Garden with our Recreation and Parks Director, Jeff Betts, and a whole bunch more. Oh, shall we take a break for everybody?
Well, good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. I'm Jeff Betts, Recreation Parks Director for the city. And tonight, I'm just going to give a brief introduction to the two people sitting to my left. But I just did want to give you a couple comments first and remind you how we got here. It's been a while. It's been about, I don't know, a little over 10 years since we started this journey at Ballinger Park. So really in its current, I guess, condition, but a little bit of background information then. In 2012, the vendor that was operating the golf course did cease operations. So we, as a city, had a really fantastic opportunity to add acreage to the existing park property down there. And so it was already city owned, but converted this to a passive park to create 55 acres total of Ballinger Park waterfront property. So the council authorized staff to start a park master planning process, and that was adopted by the council in 2015. And so the overarching plan was to incorporate plantings with native vegetation, trails, boardwalks, and wetland enhancements. If you haven't seen it in a while, this is what it looks like. I still have it with my notes in there from going on 10 years now. So really just want to make the point that this is still what we're operating off of and we're still trying to accomplish down there at Ballinger. So this presentation is just another step in that process. So that plan did segment the park into 4 unique zones. And so there is an eastern portion, this western, and then also the north and essential area near the clubhouse. So a couple of the areas that have been addressed already that the city has accomplished with many, many partners is really, originally it was going to be a $15 million plan. And we've exceeded that a little bit. and we will with escalation of cost of construction. But this plan, really the idea is that open space that we'd protect critical habitat while also providing this destination regional park for people to enjoy. And so phasing this project over multiple years and multiple partners, we've been able to complete the construction on the east side of the park of a fishing pier, a boat launch, boat dock, shoreline restoration, restrooms, a universally accessible playground, a north-south oriented asphalt pathway, and then the central part of the park partnered with U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and did a restoration project for Hall Creek, and that project exceeded a total of $8 million. The Ballinger viewing platform and trails project is currently underway on the west side of the park, and so all told so far, that's a little over $13 million in projects that have been completed or will be completed soon, and more than half of that completed with utilizing grant funding. So in the time since, there's been quite a bit of momentum gathering, really at a grassroots local level, and this has really begun with Audrey Meyer and Robin Rice to my left here. And so they have really rallied a community group around them, and the Recreation Parks Advisory Commission and Neighborhood Park Improvement Subcommittee have been involved at each meeting reviewing these plans and proposals. And so it's kind of evolved now to where the original plan for Ballinger Park was going to be, there was a garden that was to be incorporated at the entry point just east of the Mount Mickey Corso Community Clubhouse. And then there also was going to be an orchard just a little further east of that. And so we took those two ideas, and so they've evolved a little bit to both be on the east side of the trails you'll see in this presentation. I don't want to take too much presentation from them here, but it's really evolved into quite the vision at this point, and there are a lot of partners and volunteers that are kind of lining up behind this project. So with that, I will hand that presentation to Audrey and Robin.
Thank you, Jeff. All right, good evening, council and residents. I'm Robin Rice. I'm representing the Mountlake Terrace Community Foundation tonight. We're here to talk about what a food forest is, why we want food growing areas at Ballinger Park, and what we've done so far to get them installed. And we invite you to listen tonight with an open mind and a hungry stomach, and think about the benefits that these areas can bring to the community. I'm joined tonight with Audrey and our other community members in the foundation, who are Brent Meyer and Susan Kuhn. The Community Foundation was built in 2017 and exists to strengthen and build the Mountlake Terrace community. Since it was established, it's provided $50,000 in funding via direct assistance to community members and through grants. And we've also hosted community gatherings and assisted the city with developing digitization of their historical records. In 2025, the board members changed, all four of us changed, and now we're focused on starting a food forest in Ballinger Park. Our full bios are available in the meeting packet, but we're all longtime residents of Mountlake Terrace, and between us, we have professional experience with sustainable food growing, volunteer management, and ecological conservation. Between us, we have volunteer experience with the Adopt-A-Park, the Ivy League Adopt-A-Park, with forming the Ballinger Organic Garden, with the NPIS, with RPAC, with the Urban, I can never remember this name.
Urban Forest Management Plan.
Thank you. And we're all dedicated to making Mountlake Terrace thrive.
So you might be wondering right now, what is a food forest? Well, it's also known as a forest garden. It's where edible plants are organized to mimic the ecosystems and patterns found in nature. And with a forest and a food forest, there's many layers, as seen here, and we'll get to those a little bit more later. A food forest has many benefits, many more than just an orchard, because there is biodiversity, which adds resiliency. There's more less likelihood of pests from having monocultures. When you have the biodiversity, there's more wildlife habitat. With increased resiliency, you can have greater abundance of food production, and you have a variety of food that you can produce. There's carbon sequestration, and then going back to the UFMP, we're trying to increase our tree canopy. This increases tree canopy, stabilizes soils, and of course, because this is a community food forest, we're focusing on community building, community gathering space, having educational opportunities. So there's that added benefit, and local food security via open harvest. What is open harvest? It's where at a site folks can forage or harvest freely with the understanding that you take only what you need and then you leave some for others. So this eliminates food waste, prevents the mess from fallen fruit, and that could attract pests, and then that's also less work for the people gardening the space. So back to those layers of every forest, including a food forest. So we have here from the tallest to the smallest, including vines and even into the root layer. So the tallest is the overstory or canopy. This might not necessarily be food producing. We could even have conifers, which are on the border of this site. We would focus mainly at Ballinger on the understory because this would be easier to manage and to pick from. And we also had a lot of interest from the public when we surveyed what people's favorite fruits were in plums and apples and cherries. Then that's more understory layer. Those are some native plant options. Then we get into the shrub layer. Raspberries and blueberries, of course, were favorites among people. And then these are, again, some native options. And figs were another fruit mentioned by people that they'd like to see. And we can even include some unusual plants to introduce to people, like the honeyberries that were shown. And then we get into the herbaceous layer. So we have our perennials like asparagus and kale and rhubarb. We have herbs like the ones shown there that can deter pests, and the comfrey, which is a mulch builder and soil builder. And we have our ornamental and edible flowers. Also, there's some medicinal uses for those, and they can bring in pollinators too, like the yarrow. Then we get to the ground cover, so that helps with preventing the need to weed and soil loss. So we have strawberry and some more herbs. Then we get into roots, which aerate the soil, which is important. So garlic potato, there's even like Jerusalem artichoke, which is not a favorite of mine, but then the vine layer, which can create added interest, and you can have some wonderful scents from the hops and the jasmine. Kiwi is a fun one to grow. And then bonus is our mushrooms. So they help build soil by breaking down nutrients to make them available to the surrounding plants. An important part of a food forest is the concept of a guild, and they are building blocks of the food forest. So in a guild, the plants together produce more than they would alone because they provide different services. And again, this is great because it is less work for the gardeners. And could you go forward one more? There you go. So within the guild, the different roles are listed here. So some of the key ones are the nitrogen fixers, which are really important with food production to have nitrogen, then secondary plants, which will bring in your pollinators, mulch makers to build soil, ground covers to prevent weeds, or pest repellents. And then we could go back one again. So this is a wonderful illustration of a guild. So this is a fruit tree guild. We have a peach in the middle, and then we have that comfrey, which is a favorite among food forest growers, where you can chop and drop in place, and then that'll build mulch and add nutrients to the soil. We have the strawberry ground cover, time for pest deterrents. So we talked about what a food forest is. Why do we want a food forest? So we have this vision that the food forest at Ballinger will serve as a vibrant sanctuary for the community where we cultivate a diversity of perennial food plants. Through education, collaboration, and sustainable practices, we empower everyone to grow, share, and celebrate the abundance of our shared resources. Here we inspire a lasting stewardship of the environment, develop meaningful relationships, and ignite a passion for growing food that expands possibilities for a healthier, more resilient future. And our mission in the food forest at Ballinger, which we like to abbreviate as FAB, which I think sounds nice. So the mission is that it is a volunteer-driven community food growing space that nurtures a diverse ecosystem of perennial foods. We empower individuals to open harvest, explore nature, and learn sustainable gardening practices, all while promoting food security, environmental stewardship, and community connection. You might have noticed that we put in bold some of the words there, and we feel like those are key points that align with the city goals. And another reason why we think a food forest is a good idea. Actually, I'll add to this. So of the bolded concepts with the building community in the food forest, the physical activity through gardening, it's a really great icebreaker, great way to meet your neighbors, bring different people together that you might not have met otherwise. And I've definitely found that with the Ivy League, that we've made friends that we wouldn't have met otherwise. Okay. And the food forest also aligns with the Vision 2044 comprehensive plan, particularly the recreation parks element, with the purpose to promote connectivity and opportunities for community while enhancing and expanding parks. And then there's some specific points within the comprehensive plan that we feel like it really aligns with. One other part of that is how it builds the aesthetic value too. And then, as Jeff mentioned, this does go with the Ballinger Park Master Plan that was passed in 2015 after 3 community meetings, and the council passed it. And within that plan, as Jeff said, there is an orchard and a community garden. And so the food forest just really elaborates on the orchard concept, and it's a more environmentally friendly, sustainable way of going about it that really focuses on building community. So I talked about the what and the why. So who will install and maintain it? Will be volunteers from the community. We've found that there is a great appetite for this from the talks that we've done in the community. And of course, the Mountlake Terrace Community Foundation will partner with Mountlake Terrace Parks, and we have been talking a lot with Jeff and with Selena. And of course, we will be collaborating with the BOG and the Ballinger Center. We have spoke with the executive director there, and she's really interested. And then we've reached out to instructors at Edmonds College horticulture classes, and they're on board. And within that program, there's a lot of hands-on learning, and this is a great space for that because, one, it's close, there's parking, the access is really good. So yeah, they're on board for that. And then of course, we've met with the Snohomish Conservation District, and they're excited and they would like this to be a model of what can be done in other communities. And they're also happy to promote events that we have. And then we also listed other possible groups that we would like to collaborate with. And then part of planning, of course, was a lot of information gathering. So we came with our ideas and, as mentioned, talked to the Parks Department, our PAC, Snohomish Conservation District, also other food forests in the Oregon State University Food Forest Program. And then I think it's really important to get ideas from other spaces. So we toured different food forests, and we made note of what we liked and what we thought could work in our space, and what we might want to do a little bit differently. And yeah, that's Cousin Larry is my cousin Larry in Santa Maria. So he has a backyard food forest, and he has won awards for his figs. And then, of course, for the community space, it's so important to do outreach to the community. So we, as mentioned, did art pack presentations, and then at the Ballinger Organic Garden seed swaps, we started informing the public on what a food forest is with a PowerPoint that was running, and then also started our email list of interested parties. And then at National Night Out was when we were polling people on their favorite fruit and doing further education. And then we had an open house in September, and that was where we had signs around the site and invited people to tour the space, read the signs to see our ideas of what would be planted where, and also to imagine how their senses would be engaged, what they might hear and smell, like the lavender. And we also had harvested from a few local gardens that week some fruits and herbs so people could sample what might be in season in the food forest at that time. And then, of course, we had to take advantage of the BOG and the Ivy League volunteer email list and reach out to them because we knew a lot of folks from those email lists would be interested. So then the site plan. For planning for the site, it actually is where the orchard is on the Ballinger Park Master Plan for the food forest. So in that red circle between the ADA accessible path and Lakeview Drive, the northern part of the tee box, which is that sandy circle, the northern part is the bog space, and then the southern part is where the food forest would be, or the fab. So this is it zoomed in, and what's really amazing about this location is,
Yep, and you might get ready to do that with it, calling it really amazing, so maybe I should hold my question, but I am going to ask it anyway, so you can answer it with the amazing part of that, which is, I'm surprised to see it so close to the road, and so I appreciate hearing the orchard was already going to be there, but I would have had the same question knowing there was an orchard going to be there, so just weave that into why that's going to be an amazing site, to just kind of recognize the road is either non-issue, especially now that we have buses going along that route, right? So just kind of, if you wouldn't mind, mix it in. If you're already going to do that, my bad.
Yeah, I think that it is actually a positive because of it being easy access. And so many people will see it people will encounter it that might not have sought it out because it's on the way to the playground. They could be driving by. And as far as there is like a little buffer because there's that walking path and then there's a slope. And for the design, if you could go forward one slide. So the part where the grass looks dead, that is a pretty steep slope. And so
Along the hill slope, not the other spot where it looks dead.
yeah, the less dead area. So on the left side is a slope. And on the pollinator pathway would be a no-mow area or low-mow, and then it will have a bunch of wildflowers mixed in to encourage pollinators that will help both the fab and the bog. And this pollinator pathway has been done successfully at Cascadia College, where they have a food forest near it. And then we also have some spots around Mountlake Terrace where it is like that with tall grass and like poppies and then lupins, yarrow mixed in. So there's that zone. And then at some time, grapes would be great because they would do well with that slope at the bottom of the slope, using a big raspberry patch and blueberry patch because they're really popular berries. And then that tee box, which is basically just sand, would be the community gathering space in between both the bog and the fab, so it'd be a shared space. And also, of course, anyone else could use it too. So we'd have the picnic tables, the tool shed for both the bog and the fab, a Mediterranean planting to show people what they can do with poor soil, so like figs and lavender, other herbs. And then the main fab planting in the large grassy area. So that's where we'd really use those tree guilds. And we would want to make them really clear, the different guilds. So then when people visit the space, they might think, oh, we have the same growing conditions in our backyard, and we can just take that plant palette and use that grouping of plants and plant the same guild at home.
All right, now that you know what a food forest is, how is it different from a community garden, and why do we need both? Well, they're both based on growing edible plants for people to eat, but a food forest is based on perennials, things that'll grow year after year and don't need to be replanted, and are there for the community to harvest as a whole. Community garden is based on annual plants that only grow for one season and are then harvested by the gardener. Community gardens are sometimes called pea patches or allotments, depending on where you are, and are areas where gardeners use small plots of land to grow food, flowers, and herbs. And many community gardens also have areas set aside that are dedicated to growing for local food banks. The benefits of a community garden are very similar to those of a food forest in that they foster community engagement and environmental ethic, but they also foster a more direct connection between gardeners and food, and that they can grow what they like to eat. This is becoming more and more important with the rising cost of groceries at the store, and allows people to grow things that might not be available in the market. And it also allows people to have access to areas to grow food when they might not have them at home, such as people living in apartments, condos, or townhouses. The Ballinger Organic Garden, or the BOG, as you'll probably hear us call it, has a mission to empower people to grow and eat healthy, organic, local food and enhance community connections. We envision a garden where everyone can come to learn, grow, and contribute to food security and the community. So how does this actually work? Well, each spring, gardeners would pay dues and then get a plot that they can plant, water, manage, and harvest from for themselves. The annuals that people plant are what we consume regularly in our daily diets, so things such as lettuce or tomatoes or beans. Those are all annual plants. At the end of the season, the plots would be reset for the following year. And this is also different from a food forest, where you'll plant once and then those plants will continue to bear fruit for years and years to come. Similar to the food forest, we expect the community garden to be installed by volunteers from the community, but maintenance would be conducted by the bog gardeners themselves. Part of the dues that they would be paying each year would go towards maintenance of the garden, and then they'd also be expected to donate certain volunteer hours throughout the year in order to maintain their plot. We'd expect to continue to collaborate with the Parks Department and other programs that we've worked with, and we'd also like to collaborate with the local school district, the Master Gardeners, the Seattle Department of Neighborhoods, which runs their Pea Patch program, and donate food to the local food bank. In planning for the community garden, we visited many different community gardens throughout the area, including Meadowbrook and Beacon Food Forest, which both have orchards and community gardens that work together. At each of these sites, we talked to the gardeners to figure out what worked well at those sites and what the challenges were that they came across. We've been working on getting the Ballinger Organic Garden established since about 2018, and since then we've held work parties. We've developed a large social media following. We've hosted tables at National Night Out. We've published monthly garden to-do lists about what to do and when to plant them, when to plant plants. We typically host between 2 and 3 seed swaps at the library each year, and they're very well attended. And through that, we've been able to develop and maintain a free seed library that provides seeds to the local community. Through this outreach, we've really come to figure out what the city wants to see in a community garden. We've developed several draft site plans that all have somewhere around 40 4-foot by 12-foot raised beds. And as Audrey said, this is all located just north of the tee box that you'll see in the upper right of this picture. This would allow for shared use of the shed and the tools that would be stored in it between the 2 growing areas. The community garden would be bordered by a low-profile fence that would delineate the community garden versus the open harvest areas in the food forest. And we would have signs depicting what the different areas were for. Now, these might sound great to you, but you're going to wonder, what are they going to cost? We've come up with itemized lists for what we expect to be needed to put together the food forest, the community garden, and the communal spaces between them. For the food forest, the highest costs are the plants, irrigation, and compost, and we expect it to cost somewhere around $14,000. For the community garden, it has a larger startup cost due to the infrastructure of the raised beds and the soil to fill them, and we estimate somewhere around $29,000. The community areas that are located between the 2 growing areas include the shed, picnic tables, and benches, and the picnic tables and benches, as Audrey mentioned, would be available for all park visitors to use. These came out to somewhere around $14,000. All in, to get these 3 growing areas on the ground or in the ground, as the case may be, is right around $57,700. As Jeff mentioned, when the master plan was published, they came up with cost estimates for installing these areas. In 2015, to put the community garden, orchard, and all their assorted other expenses together, they estimated $230,000. Escalated for the last 10 years, that comes out to around $315,000. Our estimate of $60,000 is only 20% of that. We're pretty confident that we can get these in the ground with what we've estimated, because they've been itemized costs based on what we've seen in the stores. We also feel like this is a really great value for getting over half an acre of growing space in Ballinger Park for food. $60,000 is still a very large expense, though, and the Community Foundation is actively looking into sources for funding and donations. We're looking into grants, community donations, hosting fundraising events, and something like an adopt-a-plant where you can sponsor an individual apple tree or a blueberry plant. We are very open to hearing any ideas folks have for raising the funds to get these programs going. Thank you to Council for giving us the time to talk tonight. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to continuing to partner to address food security and build community in Mountlake Terrace. We're hosting a volunteer meeting this coming Monday at the Mountlake Terrace Library at 6 p.m., and we hope to see many of you there. Thank you again, and we'll take any questions.
Did you see we got our first plant adoption?
Thanks. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you all for being here and for the presentation. I love it. I'm super excited about your vision, and I appreciate all of the intentionality that you've put into bringing the community along and engaging them during the process. I think that probably speaks to how you got to an outcome that is so exciting. I guess a couple of, maybe a question. So I think one of the things that, so appreciate I mean, very excited about kind of where your cost estimate is versus the cost estimate that was put into place many years ago. I think ongoing maintenance is something we've heard about in recent years in our parks. And, as we've added park space, there is more maintenance involved with that. And I know staff have done their darndest to keep up with that. And, that is I guess a real question that I'm sure will come up. And I know you talked about volunteers and a little bit about kind of both of your backgrounds, but I guess I would love for you to speak a little bit more to how you see volunteers maintaining kind of this longer term and what you would need from the city in terms of maintenance. And I guess your confidence and ability to be able to maintain that volunteer base long term. And maybe, again, if you could speak to some of your experience already doing that, I think that would be helpful to understand.
Okay.
Is that clear? Or should I? It was a very long and rambly question. I can try to be more succinct if you'd like.
Yeah, I'll try to answer and let me know if I miss anything.
Deal.
So with maintenance, I think that we've shown with the Ivy League that there is a strong interest from the community in volunteering in parks, and this is another project that also brings in an added group of people with it growing food too. So I feel confident that we will have continued interest with volunteers, because with the Ivy League, we've been going for over 4 years and we're not publicizing our events, and we always have regulars attending. So imagine if we're publicizing too, I think that we could get a lot of people. There's also the Beacon Food Forest has a strong volunteer component, and we will be reaching out to the volunteer coordinator there. They recently hired someone, so we're waiting for that person to be hired. But my thought is that there's going to be some people that are traveling all the way to South Seattle, like I did when I went through the Food Forest Stewardship Program, because I was excited about that food forest, but then it's like, oh, that's pretty far. So it's nice to bring something closer to home. So I think we'll be getting some people that are in this closer to us versus Beacon Food Forest. And then Edmonds College, there's other community college horticultural programs. I think we'll be excited about it, but I have worked with Edmonds College. I used to be the groundskeeper for a park, and so I had worked with the pruning classes so that they would go and they would learn there. So I do feel confident about that as well. And yeah, there's so many organizations that I think would really be excited, like tree fruit societies too, Plant Amnesty. There's a lot of gardeners in this area. So did I answer all of your?
Yeah, I think so. I think I know not everybody is familiar with BOG and the Ivy League, and so I think just, understanding that neither of you are new. I mean, I know that neither of you are new to this work and the volunteer organization. I think you spoke to it a little bit, and I think that's oftentimes when we have these projects, I think there is, they are great projects, and there is a component of ongoing work and maintenance that needs to be thought about in order to maintain and hopefully improve over time. And so I wanted to make sure that you had the opportunity to speak to that a little bit, because I think that is one of the questions that often comes up when we look at expanding capacity in our parks. So.
I also expect that these programs would take some of the work away from the Parks Department, and that we're taking up half an acre of space, and we would be planting them with things that wouldn't need to be mowed or maintained. And so the community garden specifically would have wood chips, so that wouldn't need to be mowed between the beds. And we've worked with Selena to figure out what she would like in that area.
Love it.
We're trying to help out.
I appreciate that. No, and I think they're great. I think my mom lives in a townhouse and had a pea patch for many years, and I think there is, yes, both a community aspect of community gardens, as well as real benefit as we look at, increased diversity and more folks not maybe having a garden outside of their door. It is nice to give people the space to be able to do that here closer within our community, because I don't know of another community garden anywhere, at least super nearby.
There's a small one behind a church.
Oh, okay. That's amazing. I love it. The only other thing I guess I would add, I guess I'd be curious if you're looking at scholarships for the community garden. I think that accessibility to that space, given, it's a park space, and potentially looking at shifting the use of that is something that I'd love to see talked about in terms of like, how do we ensure that, I don't know what those costs to rent those spaces would be, and I'm not sure if you guys have a proposal around that yet, but I think just ensuring that there is equitable access to that would be something important to think about.
I think that comes as we get further down the line.
Thank you.
Okay, so Councilmember Ryan, and then there's several waiting.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you both for the presentation. Anything that has to do with horticulture, I'm very excited about. I am a graduate of Edmonds Community College horticulture program, 2 years with the Walt Bubelis.
Oh, yeah.
I did extensive work in pruning and grafting at the Arboretum, University of Washington Arboretum, with the head prunist, Chico Nori. And I did extensive work with him. And so anything that has to do with horticulture, I'm really excited about. Some people think I'm too excited because I had an extensive weed collection. And that's true. I had to dig out the roots, the weed, dry them, identify them, and the family. And I had to have a large collection of that. And that was one of my projects at Edmonds Community College. Then I was in the horticulture business for 2 years after that before I left, and I have 8 other careers. So anyway, I really want to commend you for this project. It's really nice because it's not just a pea patch. We're talking about the food forest and things to get people knowing, what you could eat, what you can't eat, things like that. I think that's really great. Things we need to know is, first of all, do we have the land to do it? And Jeff's here. We have the land to do it. And it sounds like we have some volunteers that'd like to help with it. The problem that the city might have is we're going to be facing a budget deficit. So is there any way you could start this project without any money? That's kind of the question, unless there's any volunteer organizations or grants or anything like that. Because it sounds kind of funny, but I'm really serious in that we're in a deficit next year, and we'd like to do this, but maybe we could get started without any money and just volunteers. I know when I was with the Boy Scouts, we did some stuff, but I hate to be negative on that, but money is going to be an issue. Also, on the plan, I would like you to reconsider comfree, because comfree, when you let it grow for over a year, it'll take over an area, and instead of having an Ivy League, you're going to have a comfrey league. And that's for sure, I know, because I used to mow it with a lawnmower and then slip on it because it's very slippery. Also, oregano is very weedy. It'll grow through all your gravel. You let oregano go a year or two, woo, look out. But anyway, I just want to throw that out with the comfrey because that's really bad. But not to be a downer with the money, but it is something that the city's going to consider. I don't know if Jeff's got some ideas here for grants or people in our area would like to get this started or going. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to go to Councilmember Woodard first, and then,
Kind of a question for Jeff.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry, Jeff. Any ideas there?
Yeah, there are some food insecurity grants and things that we've been researching. So no guarantees, but we are looking into that and trying to find ways to do some of that resource gathering. I think that both Audrey and Robin were coming to more of just discuss the project and process, not necessarily coming to ask for money, so to speak, but they are fundraising at all corners. So that is a part of it, obviously, is to get funding to get this off the ground. The city staff have discussed some of the skills that we have and how we could offer that without spending a lot of money. And one of the obvious things that to us that came up was how we could help install irrigation. And those are skills that we have, and it's a very low cost when you're supplying the labor to get that done. So we've identified some supplies and things like that we have that might be able to work. So there are some things we think we could do to help on that without spending a lot of funding, but we also want to support any way that they can to continue to look for outside sources. So, and then in addition, I would just say some of the next steps, if the city manager and council are interested in doing that kind of that relationship will be defined also within an agreement with the organization in the city. So some of your concerns, council member, also would be addressed about maintenance. And so we've discussed those ideas about being able to mow between things and making maintenance easy for us. So that is in all of our consideration as well.
Great, thank you. I'm wondering if we get some senior citizens down there to help too, because it's going to be in that area. Because I love the diagram and everything presented. It really looks great. Thank you.
Okay, now we can go to Councilmember Woodard and then Payne.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll try not to go too long, which gives me now a license to go 15 minutes. I wanted to start by saying I was disappointed that you didn't make a big deal out of using, we found there's an appetite for this. I thought I needed somebody to go, boom, boom, which I did do that up here for you, just so you know. That said, I do want to go back to the site. So if you wouldn't mind just pulling up 39, slide 39 for me. And I didn't actually get my question answered, and I'm going to have to be vulnerable. That one works, but I prefer the other one where it's pulled back, so two more back. Where you actually see the site and you can see right there. Yeah, that one. I prefer that one. And again, I'm just, there's buses that, two-story buses that go by there now, and there's a lot of car activity there. So where I was actually going with, I always want to pause and remind people, I went to Cal Poly, so I'm a certified city boy, which means I know how nothing grows, right? That's why I'm all interested in construction and stuff like that. But a couple things I picked up on then was air quality mattered, which is why I was saying that's interesting to me. And it was surprising to see it so close to the road. So I'm not suggesting you move it, but I was thinking to myself, well, that could actually end up being a hidden inequity, for lack of a better way of saying it. So the best way to put that is when I drive down and I see blackberry on the side of the road, I don't think, oh, I'm going to pick that. I go, oh, nasty car fumes have been feeling that. And yet you'll see people literally picking that. And they're never people of color, are they? Right? So just kind of putting that out there, saying, hey, I feel like that should be addressed in some capacity. Maybe there's an education piece. Because, again, I'm thinking to myself, this is such a wonderful idea. The values that it expresses, the idea of the food forest has come through. I had nothing to do with it, yet I can pick a fig, I can pick an apple, I can do whatever I want. That's not the culture that we are grown up in. We're very privatized. Everything's got a dollar value to it. There's trespassing laws. I mean, there's all these kind of things that really make it clear that if you had nothing to do with it, what are you doing over there? So what a powerful message to be sending out, that's not what our community is about. So I'm absolutely on board. But again, just thinking about, well, who's going to use that? And then I think to myself, well, there's already a fence there. Maybe there's a nice educational interplay to be had. And it's just little placards that talk about what does urban creep look like, if we want to call it that, because there probably used to be an urban forest there already, and now we're putting one in again, right? The irony does not escape me. But nonetheless, as we're reinstituting this footprint, maybe there's something there to be talking about, and I don't know that you have to build that in right now when you're doing this, but, as in like first steps, but just kind of recognizing The site itself could be a deterrent, even though the concept is fabulous. And so just kind of want to put that back out and play that. Really, I'm going to say maybe I'm the only one who believes that cars driving by and letting fumes go and the oil that's coming off of it into the parking and all that stuff is somehow making its way into your food. And that's why it's out in the Midwest, if you will. You know what I mean? So this kind of combating that, well, I'll call it ignorance. I don't mind. I got a PhD, so heck yeah, I'm still ignorant. This would be part of it. But I'd also like to know I can go down there and pick a piece of fruit and not be worried about what I'm actually putting in my body, because I got a lot going on as it is. But again, such a wonderful idea. I do want to acknowledge, again, I really loved your point about who's going to volunteer, because we were being very myopic personally, thinking, man, we're going to have Mountlake Terrace do this, and you quickly made it clear that, oh no, the region's already paying attention to this by virtue of these other groups who are not necessarily living here, and they're traveling pretty far. To that point, I would tell people on my way out the door here, at the base of the Space Needle, believe it or not quite there. Actually, if you move off campus and you go towards the Seattle Children's Theater, right across, there are all those abandoned, all effectively, they're still making money off them as parking lots. But the top floor, there's an actual forest up there, community gardens up there. So, and you'll have this wonderful view of the Space Needle. For what that's worth to know. We're just saying that there's these pockets where that's happening, and that's on top of an abandoned car lot, if you will. It's not abandoned because, again, they're making money off the bottom floor, but the top floors they don't use. But on the very top there, they repurposed it for this reason. So the second half, I was happy to see the draft you did want to show. Really? You going to do me like that? I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you. I told you it'd be 15 minutes. I'm not going to listen to it because it's the first time you've ever done it. That said, when you go back to your boxes, I was happy to see that you put that in there as well, because those are what you'll find down there. And again, I've seen those are very successful, and people do travel quite a distance for that opportunity. So with that, I will allow the gavel to happen. I'm sure you were trying to get something else, right? Sure, that's what it was. Absolutely.
I'd like to respond to the pollution aspect. So there is a little bit of a buffer because of that walking path that's on Lakeview, and it's raised up with having the sidewalk. So as far as runoff goes, it doesn't seem like that so much would be an issue. And then with how we have the draft design right now, it doesn't go right into food production plants right at the boundary. So there will be some space for the grass, or will be pollinator pathway to pick up pollutants. We did meet with a couple staff of Snohomish Conservation District, and they thought that the site was great. They didn't have any concerns with that.
There are also some existing trees that are planted along that slope too, that will provide an additional buffer for any pollution that might come from cars. It might intercept some of them as well. But the site is really wonderful in terms of visual access and sun getting to the plants, which is very limiting in some places in Mountlake Terrace.
Outstanding. Yeah, again, and I guess I'm just saying I would love to see that incorporated in somewhere downstream, if you will, just because, again, I can see how folks could be concerned with that. And much as it's a beautiful idea, they go, oh, I don't like the location, even though it's great for all the reasons that you've said.
And we will definitely be doing soil testing for contaminants.
No. What's Councilmember Page?
Rory's not here.
Oh, one other thing is, in that space, it's not visible in those photos, but there are mounds from the golf course, and we will be prioritizing using the mounds with that main fab planting. So because it'll be raised up, again, like if you're worried about runoff, it won't be an issue for those plants.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you all for this presentation. And, I was looking forward to, hearing this information from someone who pretty much most of my life has been concrete. That's one of the things I really like about this city, the fact that we got so much green space, and, we've got this food forest, community garden that we're here talking about. When I lived in Shoreline before I moved here, I used to spend a lot of time just gawking, if you will, at the community garden over on Meridian near 145th, as well as the one behind the golf course. And the question I used to always ask is, who's doing this? You know, and who's working this? Who's maintaining it? Who does it belong to? Do they have fistfights over the food, that sort of thing, you know? And so as I was going through your presentation, listening to your presentation, there were some things that I was asking myself some questions of, maybe some things that you can give some thought to. And first of all, again, thank you for your slide that talks about the education piece, you know, because I was going to ask, and then I saw you brought it up that, you know, the Edmonds School District, because I'm thinking to myself, again, when you had your day with the food forest, a lot of people brought their little kids, and the little kids were bopping around, and they were looking at stuff, and you know, and that's where that learning process began. But some words that jumped out at me, you know, from the presentation was sustainability, and thank you for asking that question about sustainability, because I was like, well, who's going to maintain this? And I got it. You know, we've got the Ivy League and RPAC and that group of volunteers that come in and do things. And but I hope that, you know, as you're putting this plan together and working with the community, you consider the fact that, you know, those people are kind of the same people, and you have a good outreach program to get to those who don't make it over to, you know, Ballinger, Lake Ballinger, or having a good outreach program to those who don't think about food forests, but maybe have a way to get them to think about food forests. Maybe those who live further away from Ballinger, who don't come over to Ballinger and won't see those sort of things. I looked at, you know, and again, it was brought up about the affordability of the community garden plots. And so I'm glad the question came up about, well, considering a scholarship, because when I saw the plan for the, you know, renting the plots, the thing that jumped out at me was, is that going to automatically exclude people from being involved in the community gardens? Just the fact that they have to rent a plot, who's going to do that? That's the question I used to ask myself all the time when I was looking at the plots in Shoreline and where they were located at, especially the one behind the golf course. You know, who's paying for this and who can't pay for this? And then, you know, again, you know, as we go further along with this, I would be really interested in understanding how the recycling of plot ownership will be. You know, is it just going to be this segmented group of people that are going to latch on to these things, and no one else is going to be able to get involved, you know, with the community garden? And again, it's going to turn so that it doesn't turn into an inclusion versus exclusion, you know, project. And I think the biggest thing for me, though, is the outreach, you know, in terms of getting marginalized people who do not get involved in these sort of things because they don't really get, and I'm just going to use the word invited to, because they're on the margin of, you know, as though most of you know that, you know, I am married to a green thumb, and, you know, so we do a lot of planting and whatever, but if we lived in an apartment building, would we be doing any of this? And how do we make sure that those folks, you know, not only have opportunity, understanding, desire, and some inquisitiveness to figure out, well, how can I get involved in this, and what will it mean for me? You know, to be a part of this, be a part of the harvesting, et cetera, et cetera. And the last thing I had, again, to consider, you know, I was looking at the harvesting, the one that jumped out at me. And when you mentioned these big trees, these really big trees is probably not going to be producing anything for like quite some years, but who's going to harvest these big giant trees, the canopy trees, the nut trees? Is that going to be something that the city's going to need to do because of the height of the trees? Or, you know, again, just something to consider as you talked about. Those are the things that jumped out at me as I was listening to the presentation. But I really love the presentation. I love looking at this stuff, and I'm excited about it. I was excited about it when I saw you, you know, during the summer, just starting it. And I think that, you know, as you grow and develop your plan, you know, it's going to be another reason, you know, for people to want to consider moving to Mountlake Terrace, you know, and seeing that we have this that we're initiating this sort of thing here in our city. Thank you.
Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick, sorry, something that Councilmember Page said sparked a memory for me in terms of kind of thinking about inclusivity and kind of, ensuring that we are reaching different folks. The last time we were at the Washington West Africa Center, they shared that they have folks that are members there who they've partnered with a local church that had some community garden space, essentially, and that they had been utilizing that to grow specifically foods that they couldn't necessarily readily find here locally. And so they might be a good resource to reach out to if you guys haven't already been in touch with them, both in terms of interest in finding space. I know they were interested in potentially finding other spaces in the future, as well as maybe having ideas on how those partnerships might work well if we wanted to look at other partners in the future as well.
That space that they have in Mukilteo, I think, is not going to be there much longer. So, and they're probably going to need a few more than, they're not going to just do one or two. It's going to be a whole bunch. So, I don't know if you know this, but I have a raised bed in my backyard that I no longer used. And I had in the very beginning, she was a stranger, somebody I met at one of the Terrace talks. And she mentioned wanting to know if we were ever going to have something like this. And so I talked to her afterwards and I said, well, I have a raised bed in my backyard that I'm not using. Didn't know her at all. She's now been there using my raised bed for, I think, 5 years now. That's great. And it's completely free. She can use my water. She's just, so, and I also have two more, the metal oval ones that are still in the box. So that's something that, could be used for something here. Anyways, I think this is really, really great. And I am really, many of the volunteer stuff that I do revolves around fundraising. So fundraising is something, because this amount of money is really not that much for fundraising. It is a lot of money, but if you do it right, you can probably do it every year. Okay, anyone else? Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'll be brief. I don't have a whole lot more to add beyond what my fellow council members have mentioned, other than to say thank you. You guys have done an amazing job pulling this together and putting together a great plan to bring forward to the community, and certainly look forward to offering our support in whatever little dollars we may have, but beyond dollars, just bringing this together as a community and supporting you in your efforts to make this happen, and really appreciate everything that you're doing. I see you probably already have a horticultural consultant that might be willing to volunteer some advice to bring it. So when we talk about recruiting volunteers, I know that we obviously have a very large group of volunteers. We're very fortunate in this community to have as many volunteers as we do. So, volunteerism in America today and in so many areas is falling off. But thanks to, I think, the sense of community that we have here, we're fortunate to be able to have so many people that are willing to come together and work together to be able to make this the best place possible. I did want to take, for those of you that know me, you'll understand why I did want to draw attention to Audrey's bio page picture and ask, where is that taken?
That's the Portland Japanese garden.
Yeah, it's a beautiful background there, beautiful picture. I just wanted to highlight the water feature there.
Where is it?
The Japanese horticulture, the
Japanese Portland Japanese garden. Yeah.
Because we have one in our arboretum.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I look forward to the day that we can bring more of that kind of an environment to our community and have that, and maybe start with this this community garden and food forest, and expand that to a Japanese garden and other amazing plant life that we can enjoy throughout the community. But thank you again for all the work you guys are doing. It's just amazing. We're very fortunate to have you involved in helping to plan this in our community. Thank you.
Mayor, if I might.
Go ahead.
I'd like to point out that the garden there I've been to many times, and that water feature is actually a natural water feature.
We can have a man-made natural.
I'd like to point out I grew this cabbage behind the senior center at the original bog site.
They have those in Alaska. Okay, any more?
I saw that right
Yeah. I'm just, okay, are there any more? Okay, well, thank you. I think that's the end of the presentation. No more questions, no more comments. We can move on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. Okay. We have a request to have a slight short break.
I'm always bad at this, so we'll just say 8:57.
Okay, we're back in session. Great, so now, next on our agenda is the review of the professional services agreement for our federal lobbyists with our city manager, Jeff Knighton.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. Tonight we have a extension of a contract for our federal lobbyist with the Johnston Group. The Johnston Group's contracted with the city for lobbying services since 2007. And since 2007, we've been able to secure significant federal funds, over $10 million, for projects within Mountlake Terrace. Jake Johnston was here on October 23rd, month and a half ago, to talk with you about the environment and the federal environment at the moment and what our projects and priorities were for the upcoming calendar year, or the upcoming legislative session in Washington, D.C. And the proposed contract extension would be, again, for 2 years and would include 3% increases each of those 2 years. The current retainer amount is $4,961 per month, and with a 3% extension in 2026, that would be $5,110 a month, and in 2027, $5,265 a month. The scope of work didn't change all that much. There was a couple things that I wanted to highlight, though. First, wanted to make sure that we are continuing to pursue funding for our library and community center for the roof. And second, we have consideration of a potential application for the Build and Raise grant. And also want to make sure that we continue to pursue the federal set-asides for the small and medium cities, which would be significant for cities of our size. Also want to continue to support CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant Program, and do what we can to prevent cuts to that program, along with the HOME program. It's the Home Investment Partnerships Program, to prevent, or do what we can to prevent cuts to funding for those programs as well. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. On that note, it might seem like a lot of money to pay someone to do this, but the rewards the city gets is so, I don't know. What's the word for it?
Pretty significant.
It's significant.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really significant. All the stuff we get, and our Main Street, and all sorts of things. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I will echo those comments. It's return on investment, I think, is the term we want to use. The return on investment is incredible. Having worked with Jake for a number of years, and the amount of work that he does on behalf of our city and the dollars that he's been able to bring home to help us address all of our challenges really is substantially helpful. So I think we're looking to for a motion on that tonight.
No, actually, our recommendation is for you to place this on the consent agenda for your December 18th meeting.
Then I will not make a motion to extend the contract tonight and look forward to approving it in our consent agenda when it's before us. But yeah, I don't think much more needs to be said other than strong support for Jake and the work that the Johnson Group has done on our behalf.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you. So next will be the council liaison reports. And why don't we start on the right-hand side this time? Or did I do that last time? I can't remember. Sorry.
Jeff first.
Oh, no, city manager's report was first, but we can switch it if you'd like. I can go next.
You weren't done?
No, this is, that was one of our agenda items. I just had a couple of things I wanted to mention. It's real short.
Okay.
Just two items for the update, but they're very important, and we're very proud of both of them. First, we were, how do I want to say that? We earned the Transportation Improvement Board grant this year for our Main Street project. And we will be, our public works staff and engineering staff worked incredibly hard to put together a grant application that showed the vision of where the city wants to go with our Main Street, and that was vehemently agreed with. And we received a $5 million grant from the Transportation Improvement Board. With all the funding, including with Congresswoman Delbenne's support and with direct appropriations from our state legislature, we now have enough funding to build the next phase of the Main Street program. We will be advertising the bid for that in the second quarter of 2026, and we hope to be under construction in summer of 2026. So very happy about that. Second, wanted to highlight our Public Works Director, Gary Shimmick. Just the other day, Governor Bob Ferguson appointed him to the statewide Public Works Board. And that's fantastic, not only for us, we're very excited to have representation on a statewide board, but very proud of Gary. He did a lot of work, and he has definitely earned that spot, so I'm very happy for him.
Can we applaud?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Anyone have any more comments on that? All right. Well, we're going places. Okay, so now the council liaison reports, starting with Councilmember Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. And yeah, big kudos to city staff for all of those accomplishments. It's a short one. It hasn't been that long since we had a meeting, right? And then we had Thanksgiving. So I hope folks had a nice Thanksgiving. I would like to say, as part of our consent agenda earlier, we did approve a fill for the Planning Commission vacancy. So just wanted to make sure to say congratulations to Chris Finch on that appointment, and thank you to Steve Landis, who was in that role for his work the last several years, particularly as the Planning Commission had a lot of work that they did. And then just I would note that the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion meeting month, the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission meetings are at 6:30 now. I think folks are tracking on that, but the meeting this month is on the 17th. So that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Woodard.
That caught me off guard. First, just points of clarification. Earlier this afternoon, I made a comment about, I'm going to talk, and then I'm going to take 15 minutes. I was solely talking about myself and what I have recognized. If I say I'm going to be brief, I would be anything but that. So just calling myself out on that. And then equally, I do want to say that was awesome timing. So I'm going to give you on the fly credit and say that, no, the mayor was not gaveling me, although that was awesome timing, because I was seriously about to disassociate and go, Lord, nowhere. Lord knows where. So it was perfectly timed. That said, mine is also brief. First one is, actually, let me back up and just say thank you. Those are two amazing updates. Thank you for your leadership around that, especially when I think about the hidden part about that is our Public Works Director feels like he can balance both of those, and I think that that's a direct reflection back to the House, that you want to get this job done first when you're paid for, but that there's going to be support for him to be able to work on this higher level. I do want to make sure that it gets acknowledged. I appreciate that. I had three things that I have attended since the last time we were together. On the 22nd, I attended the Red-Tailed Hawks Flying Club Gala fundraiser, which for anyone out there who has little kids and they're thinking about flying, like when they look up, they're not just talking about, oh, look at the birds, but they're actually wondering, how do you become the person flying that? There are groups out there that do that. So if that sounds like something your child has shown interest in, and that's like from very early on through high school, Red-Tailed Hawks Flying Club. And then on the 26th, I think folks here will talk about it, so I'll just say I was also at the Senator Solomon conversation. And then today, we had cops and clergy at Ballinger Center or at Mickey Corso Center. And two of our officers ran that, Sergeant Porter and Detective Elrod. We had about 15 folks show up, and it was around financial scams and situational awareness. And I just want to applaud both of them for a wonderful conversation. Our Deputy City Mayor was there as well. Wait, Deputy City Manager, Deputy City Mayor, I didn't know where that came from. Deputy City Manager was there, as well as one of our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commissioners. So it was also nice just to have a city presence in the space, but I think you would agree that was a good use of time and a very important conversations. As I told that group, I'll tell this group, I myself was scammed less than 2 years ago. That is just to say that these folks are really good at what they do. So the more you can educate yourself, the better off you're going to do. And it was just wonderful to see our police department taking a proactive lead in talking to our community. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. It's the beginning of the month. No report. Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Page.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to be brief also. I think like on the 24th, we sat in on the city manager review. The 26th, sat in on a conversation with Senator Jesse Solomon. And tonight, before coming over here, I was over at the Getaway for day one of the Domestic Violence Center fundraiser that they're hosting over the next 3 days. And they have 4 bins over there that are pretty full already, and they're taking in donations. And tomorrow, it's going to be from 6 to 9, just like it's today, 6 to 9. And they got karaoke and a lot of giveaways. But Saturday, they wanted everybody to know they have a band, Stacey Jones Band, which pretty popular band, and a lot of getaways, and people that make donations or bring gifts will get a free spaghetti dinner. So they're expecting a lot of people to show up. I know on social media, there's a lot of folks that are, expressing some interest in going or participating or just sending in gifts and money. So, kudos to this council because, this all started because of the relationship that this council, started, with the center and making it available for some of us to go and visit. And so that relationship is there. And we've got, an officer right around the corner that spends, a lot of time, I believe 18 years, doing what she does as good as anybody does and making sure that, victims have opportunity to get to places that they need to get to, like this place. So, and I understand that before my time, this council gave them some money, and they need money, and they need, other things. And so this is a great way that our community is showing, like we talked about community early on with the forest there and volunteerism. Well, that's exactly what we're doing. That's what we're showing over there. So it's a great place to be, I think, in this city, Mountlake Terrace, because of stuff like this. So that's my report.
All right, Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. All right, so let's see. On the 26th, we had our meeting with Senator Solomon to talk about our legislative priorities. On the 1st, had The mayor and I and the city manager had our quarterly meeting with council member Jared Mead to talk about our legislative priorities at the county level and working together and keeping him informed of county issues. Following that meeting, had a meeting with the two co-chairs and executive director of Snohomish County tomorrow. I'm sorry, two co-chairs, myself and Stephanie Vignell as co-chairs of the exploratory committee for Snohomish County tomorrow. We're meeting with Ann Larson, the executive director of Snohomish County tomorrow, to plan out our General Assembly on the 10th. On the 2nd, Tuesday, had the South County City Council Mayors Pro Tem and Presidents meeting. On the 3rd, yesterday, had the Executive Committee for the Snohomish County tomorrow meeting, planning out our activities for not only the General Assembly, but also meetings to come in the next couple of months. Earlier today, started the morning with Puget Sound Regional Council Operations Committee, then followed by the Puget Sound Regional Council Executive Board meeting, and then followed by the mayor and I met with the city manager for our regular update, and then that brings us to tonight's meeting. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Okay, so for my report, on November 24th, I attended the Snohomish County, this is all of Snohomish County Mayor's meeting, and on the 26th, I attended the meeting with Senator Solomon, and on the 29th, I had our Congressman Susan Delbany wanted to, she was already going to be in Mountlake Terrace, and so she reached out and wanted to have lunch with us. And so I went to lunch with her on a Saturday, which is the 29th. And then on the 1st of December, I had the meeting with our county council member, Jared Mead. And then on the 3rd of December, the South County mayors, we meet once a month for lunch, and we had our meeting over in Briar. And when you have your lunch meeting in Briar, you already know where it is because they want to have one place to eat. On the 3rd of December, I attended the AHA, which is the Alliance for Housing Affordability meeting. And on earlier today, I attended the community transit meeting, and whenever that meeting was, there was a South County collaborators with our Mayor Pro Tem and our city manager. I attended that too, but I didn't have it written down, so I don't remember when it was. And that it was recently, and that is the end of my report. So then now we can move on to new business. Does anyone have any new business? Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to bring up our favorite subject, flock. And while many of us have supported it originally with the intent of improving public safety, we had heard from many others around the region that had previously implemented flock and found great success in improving public safety and reducing vehicle theft and things like that. And so we adopted it with the intent of being able to improve public safety. But since then, we have seen that it has been used it's been weaponized against cities and their residents, and brought great division to our community. And I think, and then most recently, we saw a judge rule that they are public records. So based on, I could go on, but we've heard from our residents about the many troubles and challenges that this has the possibility of bringing. I think it's caused too much division in our community, and I think it's time to pull the plug. So I would like to move that we officially cancel the contract with Flock.
Do we need a second?
Second.
It was, but I would like to make a motion. I will move to cancel the contract with Flock.
Second.
Do we have discussion, or do we just go ahead and vote?
Discussion.
You can open discussion, yeah.
Okay. Anyone have any? Seeing none, shall we just go ahead and
Call
for
the question.
All in favor to cancel?
Aye.
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 All opposed? So now Flock is canceled. Thank you. Anyone else for new business? I think we all want to go home. And this time, I'm not going to be killing a fly. I'm going to gavel that we are now adjourned.